Wo'y standby, dili mangitagaway. Yeah, test, test, test. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Hey, why hello there. Good morning, y'all. This is Ned over at My Philippine Dreams, and to the E to the D over at MPD, coming at you from the lovely city of Dumaguete, the city of gentle people, here on Negros Oriental, the Philippines. And this is This Week in the Philippines for October 18th, 2017. Yesterday is history, tomorrow's a mystery, and today is a gift. That's why they call it the present, or so I've been led to believe. Welcome to the Philippine Dreams bi-monthly This Week in the Philippines live cast, where I regularly attempt to address issues that could affect foreigners living, working, studying, doing basically anything in the Philippines. I'll try to talk about the good, the bad, and the occasional downright ugly of day-to-day life in our humble little island archipelago. This week, we're talking about the two-day transportation strike, the liberation of Marawi. I can never say that. Marawi. Filipino support for the drug war, and a few recent studies examining the safety and security of living in Manila. Let's go to the live feed, make sure this thing is actually functioning. Okay. But your yesterday is still my today. That is a very good point, Walter Brown, because I am in the future. It's like something out of a sci-fi novel. Remember that the information presented in this live cast is just that, objective information that I've accrued from a variety of primary sources wherever possible. I've tried to corroborate that information to present the facts as they are presented to me. Sometimes I am occasionally guilty of passing on misinformation. Never forget that I consistently try to live up to the low expectations that I set for myself. I will be alternating this type of live cast with the viewer comments and questions every other week. So one week it'll be the live stream This Week in the Philippines. The next week it'll be a live stream of viewer questions and comments. I know that live casts aren't everybody's cup of tea. Not everybody likes live casts. Some people refer to them as lazy casts because pretty much they're just that. I don't have to do any editing. I don't have to do any other work afterwards. It uploads to YouTube and it's there and done. It does require a lot of preparation though, because I actually have to do research and write out the article. The live stream's comment section is open. As always, feel free to ask questions, goof around, but try to keep it respectful and moderately civil. If you're going to be an ass, you're probably going to get banned, and then you're going to have to create another anonymous user account and come back next week. But first, and last week we started off with bad news with the passing of a local expat here in Dumaguete, R.I.P. Sir Christian. So this is better news. This is congratulations to longtime friend of the channel and longtime friend, Sarah. If you guys know Sarah, you know she's the one that used to refer to me as Need because she couldn't really pronounce Ned. So she'd say, "Hi, Need," who just gave birth to a baby girl. She's got a new baby girl. So congratulations on your die, and just don't call her Need because that would just be inappropriate. This week's corporate sponsor, returning once again, is Chasing Your Philippine Dream, an expat's guide to the Philippines. If you're considering working, living, or retiring to the Philippines, this is the resource you have been looking for. And if that isn't enough, it also comes with a 100% money-back guarantee. It slices, it dices, it purees. My 450-plus page ebook is pretty damn good. And at $10.95 with a 100% money-back guarantee, you can't go wrong. You can find a link to it down in the video description box. And since we're e-bagging, let's go on to Patreon. If you found what I do and what I try to do to be of some value to you, consider supporting the ongoing efforts on my Patreon site, which is www.patreon.com/Philippine Dreams. Special thanks to all patrons, past and present, including Sir Rico. He's actually been there a long time. Dan N., Tom D., 1DIR, Casey S., Dave H., Dale S., Sir Ahmed, Kevin F., and my latest patrons, I should say, Don and Maribel. Thank you guys very much, And it's really appreciated. And thanks once again to Sir Martin, who dropped off that bag of swag for me, including a rash guard, new swimming goggles, a cool hat, and a boatload of science fiction books. So that'll keep me busy for quite a while. I really appreciate it. Thanks much to all. All right, let's get into free stuff, because we're all about free stuff here. We're going to be doing the trivia in a little while. So get your email browser up, type in myphilippinedreams at gmail.com, because we're going to be getting to that next. Podcasts. Podcasts have really blown up over the last couple years. I just seriously started with them about 6 months ago, and I am totally hooked at this point. For those who don't know, podcasts are basically like radio shows. They're audio-only shows that you can either listen to over the internet streaming, or you can listen to, and this is what I do, I listen to it over my phone. I have an Android phone, and I downloaded an app called Podcast Addict, and I subscribe to a whole bunch of different podcasts, and I listen to them doing that. A lot of times when I'm working, I'll be listening to podcasts. A lot of times when I'm waking up, and I'll greet the day with a podcast, because there's usually chores to do around the house, like picking up dead carcasses of rats after angels were murdering them all night, sweeping, doing dishes, all that stuff. So basically, my subscriber list at this point includes NPR's Radiolab. If you've listened to the radio for a long, I think Radiolab's been around for almost 20 years. It's like the original podcast. It's an amazing show. It's incredibly educational. One of the most recent shows they just had was on 2 programs that Adobe's coming out with that are used for editing audio and video. And basically what these programs do is they either look at video for 30 minutes or audio for 30 minutes, 30 seconds, something like that, a very short amount of time. And then they can actually create new video or new audio based on those samples. So when we're talking about fake news and all the craziness that's going on right now, when Adobe finally published these programs, and they actually did the demos on them already, that's going to be really scary, because basically you can use video or audio to get anybody to do or say anything on either of those in either of those contexts. So that's going to be some crazy stuff. Thankfully, and they were talking about the security of it. Like right now with Photoshop, a lot of times you can tell if a photo's been photoshopped, because you just go in as deep as you can to the pixels, and there's certain algorithms that they use to see if it's been altered. So at this point, they can tell if the video and audio has been altered, but who knows what's going to happen 5, 10 years down the road, or even a year down the road. I mean, stuff's moving along, it's so fast. Joe Rogan Experience is another podcast I listen to. I know a lot of people listen to him. He's been around for a very long time. I think he's the biggest podcast right now. And what's really cool is he's a funny guy. He's a comedian. He knows the UFC stuff, so they talk about that sometimes. And he also has on some really cool guests. And sometimes I won't watch a show if it's a certain guest I'm not really that interested in. Duncan Trussell, Family Hour. Duncan Trussell is this raspy, lesbian-voiced, woo-woo hippie guy, and that's how he describes himself, so I'm not insulting him. He's a really interesting character, and he's got some cool guests on also. I like watching that. I also listen to the We Watch Wrestling podcast. I don't actually have time to watch wrestling, so I listen to their podcast, and it's really good because it's 3 comedians, and one of them actually worked for WWE for quite a while, so he's got a really unique inside look at wrestling. Reveal is another excellent podcast. It's very professional investigative reporting. It's similar to NPR's Radiolab. I mean, it's really well produced. I just recently listened to a podcast they had on Richard Spencer. And Richard Spencer is the white nationalist. And again, I'm not trying to offend him by saying that. That's how he describes himself. And they were asking about where he gets the finances to support his operation. And he didn't want to talk about it, and come to find out they did further investigation and they had him back on the show. And Richard Spencer's money all comes from cotton farms down in Louisiana. They got like 5,000 acres of cotton fields down there. And they also receive massive subsidies from the United States government. They received over $2 million from the U.S. government. So I guess a lot of his funding is coming from the government that he loathes and detests. So that was interesting. And finally, I listen to the United States of Anxiety Culture Wars, which is a really cool podcast which gets into the culture wars that are going on in the United States of America. And have no doubt, it is a culture war. We're going to see how this all works out. Let's go to the comments real quick before we get into the gist of this. Have you seen the movie The Wrestler? It is good, Joe Brennan asked. Yes, I did. That was a really good movie. That was Mickey Rourke? Mickey Rourke. That was a really good movie. And I guess that's, I mean, I know it's fake. Everybody knows it's fake. So for the people that are watching are like, Ned, you know wrestling's fake, right? Yeah, everybody knows it's fake, man. We're all in on the joke. We're all in on the gag. We're there for the storylines. We're there for the humor. We're there for the athleticism because a lot of these guys, wrestling isn't like it used to be in the old days. It's not a big lumbering bunch of like big lumbering guys anymore. A lot of them are actually like former gymnasts and stuff. So there's a lot of that aerial flippy stuff going on, and it's really cool to watch. Stitcher Radio app for Android and iPhone is an easy way to get started with podcasts. DRB 166 notes. Yeah, there's quite a few apps. I'm just comfortable with the Podcast Addict one. All right, as we said, into the trivia question, and get ready with your browsers. Last week's trivia question was, this outlaw from the Southern Hemisphere is famous for building primitive body armor out of boilerplate and having shootouts with local constabulary. His last words before being hung were, such is life. Who was this man and what is his nickname in his home country? The answer was, of course, the infamous Ned Kelly, sometimes referred to as Old Buckethead. And Scott Pearson was the first to email the correct answer, and for that he received a free copy of my ebook, Chasing Your Philippine Dream, An Expat's Guide to the Philippines. A number of folks also guessed correctly in the video's comments section, but you got to email in the answer. Also a note that Kenton, or maybe it's Kent, Mattingly, was also the first email to note that the headphones I held up during the last live cast were Koss Porta Pros, one of the most highly rated and incredibly cheap headphones, and I think they've been around for like 25 years. I've always had Koss Porta Pros. These are actually the Sporta Pros, which are kind of a little bit cheaper, but these are just as good. If you're interested in getting these incredible headphones, there's a link to it. There's an affiliate link, I should say, down to it in the video description box. And he also noted that since this is the Philippines, and he lives in Florida, and you're in the tropics, the foam earpieces, they rot out incredibly fast. I don't know if it's dry rot or just something weird that's going on. So you have to have replacement ear pads also. And I also need these for these, because these are also foam ear pads. So congratulations to Kenton. He was also sent a free copy of my book. So this week's trivia question is, and to know this one, you got to have kind of been listening to the last live casts. This common household appliance is typically used for keeping yummy mango floats nice and chill. In past live casts, I have also noted that it serves an important secondary function, at least in my house, at least in my experience. What is this household appliance, and what is this important secondary function? The first person to email the correct answer to myphilippinedreams@gmail.com gets a free copy of the book, a $10.95 value at any of your local book retailers. And in case you haven't watched prior live casts, here's a hint. Basura. That's all I'm going to say. Underwear seems to be a thing in the Philippines. If you're in the Philippines or if you have any Filipino friends and you use Facebook, you may have noticed this recent trend. Sometimes there's a scrolling section, people you may know, which is friends or friends of friends and all that stuff. You scroll through it, you might see some Filipinos kicking back in their underwear. And we're not talking kicking back in their boxer shorts. We're talking kicking back in very tight briefs, basically banana hammocks. And it's pretty bizarre. And come to find out, and I've been talking to some people, I guess it's a thing here. It's a fad. And I guess it started with like the gay community or something. But now it's like spreading around because people just like to do what other people are doing. So that's become a thing. Unfortunately, the fairer sex has not been influenced by this fad yet. So there's no, profile pictures of beautiful ladies in their panties, which is sexist. It should be equal opportunity. So on to the news. Transportation strike. This happened this past Monday and Tuesday. Jeepney drivers across the nation conducted a 2-day strike to protest what they see as an unjust, and that's in witches' claw, quotation marks, jeepney modernization plan. The transport group Piston, which is an acronym for some unpronounceable Tagalog phrase, reported that 225,000 of the 250,000 franchise jeepneys across the nation joined the strike, which resulted in the government preemptively shutting down some schools and job sites. So it was good for the kids and the workers. The modernization plan is intended to replace most of the smoke-belching diesel monstrosities with electric vehicles in order to increase transportation efficacy and cut down on the rampant pollution in the cities. National transport groups are protesting that up to 600,000 jeepney drivers and 300,000 operators would be driven into unemployment if the plan is brought to fruition. Despite the nationwide strike, the government still intends to move forward with the plan. In response, the director of Piston stated, "If they will continue the plan, we will also continue our strike. We have no choice." So this was an issue, and it actually affected the last transportation strike. Didn't affect Dumaguete. Everybody was like, yeah, whatever. But this one actually did, and a lot of the schools and some of the work sites were closed in Dumaguete, so the kids had 2 days off. It's like snow days. And this is only the beginning. I mean, you're going to see this modernization happening in the Philippines, and you're going to see this modernization and eventual automation of basically all transportation functions in the very near future all around the world. Also, thanks to whoever corrected me last week, I was using decisive instead of divisive. My only excuse is words are hard. So much for that English degree. Back to the comment section. Jerry Terry says, "Yep, my Filipino family has no work or school till today." Yeah, it's like snow days. The kids were thrilled, and it was cool because there was no traffic in the city. Thank good for the Jim. All right, I appreciate that. Randall, what's the price? All right. Also, I recently had this experience, and I guess this is something that's common throughout the Philippines. And it's a school, and it's basically a fundraiser, and they couch it under it being sort of like a contest or like a pageant of sorts, and they usually refer to it as the Mr. and Mrs. or Mr. and Miss UN, as in United Nations. So what they do is basically the kids create these costumes, and a buddy of mine, his kid actually, he had a local woman create an outfit for him that was simply amazing. It's the coolest costume I've ever seen. And then the kids give a presentation on their country. Each of the kids is assigned or chooses a country to represent. I was talking to Michelle yesterday, and she actually did this, and she was Miss Czech Republic, and she actually won. So they do the costume, they do a presentation, and part of who wins Mr. and Miss UN is based on how much money they can bring to the school. Now, this is the way it works. So the person brings in the money, like a family member or whatever, and then whatever kid brings in the most money wins that part of the contest. I guess there's 3 parts to the contest. And so a buddy of mine asked, he called me on Skype one day and says, "Hey Ned, I need a favor. My kid's doing this thing, and you help out with some money for it." And I was like, "Sure." And then I thought about it later, and it was only when I thought about it later and I realized the full ramifications of what this represents that I kind of regretted doing this. But so basically what he was able to do, he was able to bring in about 230,000 pesos. I brought over like 47,000, and he had the balance. And what they do is they have a day, I think it was this past Monday, you all go to the school, you present them the money, they count the money, and then they give it back to you. So I didn't lose out any money, I basically, and then they take a percentage of that, a percentage of the total. I think it's like 2% of the total when it's over 200,000 pesos, and they keep that for the school. But my buddy paid that, so it didn't cost me anything. And I asked, when I went there, I said, "Hey, do you know where this tradition comes from and why they do this?" And as usual, nobody wanted to actually answer it. And what's ironic is this is a school. They're supposed to be educating children. They're supposed to be, providing some moral and ethical waypoints for them to navigate life through. And I'm just wondering what kind of message this sends to the kids, and it's all about the money, whoever can bring in the most money. And if you thought 230,000 pesos was a lot, another foreigner, an Indian gentleman, I believe he had 1.2 million pesos worth of US currency and Filipino currency that he brought in. So of course, it was the foreigners that basically won. As far as I know, it was the Indian gentleman first, and then my buddy was second. And it was just kind of strange. It was kind of odd. And I guess before it used to even be worse, but they've pared it back a little bit. And so that's my little rant on that. It's not really a rant. It's just things are different here in the Philippines. And I just get concerned when I see how those messages. But you can see where it came from. I mean, the wealthy elite, they wanted their kids to win. They were part of the school system or whatever. They had influence with the school system. And they said, hey, let's make this part of the Miss and Mr. UN experience. Back to the comment section. Joe Brennan says, I totally support money going to schools, but yeah, the winners is based on how much money they bring in. This is so political. I don't think it's political. I think it's just the bias they have, not the bias, but the importance they place on wealth and power. Of course, the people that have the wealth and power are also going to have a lot of political pull. It teaches kids to do whatever for money. Yeah, it's kind of sketchy, man. I'm not a big fan of it. I realized the other day that I hadn't watched the last couple years of South Park, so I just downloaded season 19 of South Park, and I watched the first 2 episodes last night. The first episode was the PC Bro episode, where it's all about political correctness, and Caitlyn Jenner was in there driving over people and stuff. South Park is absolute genius. And the second episode was Trump had become president of Canada, and he had built a wall to keep the Americans out, and all the Canadians had moved into America, and all the Americans were upset about all these illegal Canadian immigrants. It was pretty good. Aliens, I should say. Illegal Canadian aliens. South Park is absolute genius. They also got a new game out. The new South Park game is out. It's called The Fractured Butthole. I mean, the fractured butt hole. Like it's broken, but it's whole. But it sounds like fractured butthole. Yeah, okay. All right, next news article. Most Filipinos in support of drug war. A Pulse Asia survey conducted in September noted that 88% of polled Filipinos supported the nation's violent war against drugs. 9% noted that they were unsure of the methodologies employed, and only 2% stated that they were opposed. 2%. Despite this, 76% expressed concern that some innocent victims were getting caught up in the drug war, most noticeably the drama surrounding the killing of Kian de los Santos. Despite the latter reservations, the government seems to be pleased with the report, with government spokesman Ernesto Abella declaring, "This goes to show that our people appreciate the administration's efforts to reduce the incidence of crime and make the streets safer and the communities more peaceful." He then went on to say of the Catholic Church, "It is unfortunate that the Church has been a staunch critic of the government's anti-illegal drug campaign. We appeal to the Catholic Church hierarchy to encourage some of its leaders to be more cautious in their pronouncements that drive a wedge among the flock." Flock? So what's he referring to? People as sheep? Oh, it's a Catholic thing. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not. Yeah. The Pulse survey also noted that 73% of the respondents believe that extrajudicial killings are taking place. So you have 27% that don't believe that extrajudicial killings are taking place. This comes as President Duterte's recent decision to strip the Philippines National Police of their leadership in the drug war, placing the much smaller Philippine Drug Enforcement Agency in that position, with the PNP only providing support for their operations. So recently, the President Duterte declared that the Philippine National Police aren't going to deal with the drug war anymore. It's going to be the DEA, and the PNP are only going to be in a supportive role. This decision by the president seems to come after a drop in trust and satisfaction scores conducted by another survey last month. So yeah, last month there was another survey, and the president's approval ratings or trust ratings were down a bit. Jesus is My King 777 says the Roman Catholic Church is ran by the Jesuits, very corrupt. Joe Brennan says, I support the drug war. The Philippines is very different than America. It is and will become more like America, and eventually these drug-based killings need to completely stop. Why do they eventually have to stop? Why don't they just stop them? Killing, and they're basically targeting the poor. You're not seeing too many wealthy, big-time drug dealers being shot in the head and dumped in the street. That's just my opinion, though. Jesus is My King says, I can't even watch U.S. media anymore. Ned, are crabs a problem in the Philippines? I don't know, man. I don't get out much. Beauty pageants are rigged. Oh, beauty pageants, that's another thing. All right, moving on. As I was typing this up yesterday, the Philippine government just declared that the fighting in Marawi on the southern island of Mindanao has finally come to an end, with President Duterte stating, I hereby declare Marawi City liberated from the terrorist influence that marks the beginning of rehabilitation of Marawi City. Military leaders added that the fighting is not yet over. I guess the actual fighting isn't over, but it will only be a matter of days until the last opposition is mopped up. On Monday, the government noted that the deaths of two major terrorist leaders in the city left the remaining rebels without any leadership. It took the Philippine military nearly 5 months to overcome the Maute terrorist clan, killing a reported 857 enemy combatants. 162 government soldiers were killed during the conflict, as well as were 47 civilians. Marawi City, once home to over 200,000 Filipinos, is the largest city in the province of Lanao del Sur and also serves as its capital. Much of the once bustling burg is now a plain of rubble. All right. And finally, and this caused quite a little bit of stir when I posted this on the Facebook yesterday, is Manila unsafe or unsecure? The city of Manila was recently listed the 10th most unsafe place to live in the world, according to the 2017 Safe Cities Index. As I said, I posted this article on my Facebook page, and commenters ripped into it with a quickness. This is the first time that Manila has appeared on the Safe Cities Index, and the index measured the safety of a city based on a variety of social and economic factors, including healthcare, infrastructure, transportation, internet, electricity, physical safety, and the like. The study goes on to note that Manila was lacking in income, technology skills, in dealing with infectious disease, and the increasing threat of climate change. Are we allowed to talk about climate change, or is that part of the American culture war? Most of the 10 most unsafe cities in the report are in Southeast Asia. Another relevant study that noted that Manila is also one of the most stressful places to live in the world, citing rampant pollution, congestion, and quote-unquote hellish traffic. Finally, another study just released by the United Nations has noted that about 720,000 Filipinos are at risk of being displaced due to natural disasters such as typhoons, tsunamis, earthquakes, and flooding. South and Southeast Asia was once again in the top 10, and the Philippines came in at number 5 greatest risk among the 204 countries that were taken into consideration. Topping the list were India, China, Bangladesh, and Vietnam. So what they're talking about there that are people that could be displaced by catastrophic climate events like earthquakes, tsunamis, typhoons, and all that. Now, what's scary about Manila, Manila's actually had a couple really nasty earthquakes in the past. It's been quite some time since they had one. And every time I'm in Manila, this is something I always think of because I get paranoid, and it's just all the giant high-rises everywhere. And if you've seen things constructed in the Philippines and you've done construction in the West, you might notice a difference in building codes here. So that's always a concern of mine, especially when I'm like the 10th, 12th floor. Although if there was an earthquake and it went down, I don't think I'd really feel it. So a lot of people are getting upset about Manila being listed number 10th most unsafe city in the world. But a lot of things they're taking into consideration is, again, the infrastructure, which is lacking in Manila. They're looking at the congestion. They're looking about the threat of climate change. They're looking at natural disasters and the like. A lot of these places are coastal cities, and that's one of the things that they take into consideration. Also, the nation's stability, terrorist activity, that sort of thing. So it's not just being safe, like some people were saying, hey, I'd walk around, downtown Manila. I don't know. Somebody said they live in Tondo. I don't know why you live in, okay. They feel more safe in Manila than they would on the south side of Chicago. But again, it's not just crime. It's a variety of other factors that are being taken into consideration. I will have this full article up on my website tomorrow along with all the citations. I'll have links to all the relevant topics so you guys can all check it out. Yeah, people talking about beauty pageants. I mean, come on, beauty pageants, really? I mean, it's not like you had to put a whole lot of effort and make a whole lot of sacrifice to be beautiful. Somebody said, Charles McCullough says, absolutely, they don't have any codes. I guess he's referring to the construction. Scott Parnell says, crap, I am going to Manila next month. They got good food, man. It's good nightlife. There's lots of stuff to do. There's areas of it that are very nice. Some other areas that can be a little rough. Jesus is my king says, the biggest rats I have ever seen in my life were from Manila. Ha, ha, ha. Yeah, they got some big rats. Yeah, they have the light rail system. Jason Jones mentioned that they got the trains. The trains work very well. They should get more of those. They should try to work on that infrastructure. Instead of building a bridge from Cebu to Bohol, they should probably work more on local transportation systems. Year to date. Okay, Jason Jones is reminding, or no, DRB 166 is reminding us that Chicago year-to-date shot and killed, 526 shot and wounded, 2,503 total shot, 3,029 total homicides, 565. Yeah, it's a major American urban area, and America has its gun culture. I mean, it's part of everything. It's part of when, sports commenters are talking about sports games. Boy, he really rifled that bullet right into his chest. You hear the terms all the time. So it's part of our culture. Don't be insulting our culture. I'm also going to put up a link a little bit later to a video on YouTube that shows a Filipino game show and some pretty funny things that happened during the game show. And the reason I'm going to post it up is because on that video, if you go down to the comment section, it's a lot of Filipinos expressing their disgust at the video because they're not seeing the comedy of it. I think they're seeing it as the poster is implying that Filipinos are stupid or something or can't count. So when we talk about balat sibuyas, we talk about that onion skin and the sensitivity that Filipinos have for when anybody addresses anything within their culture. I thought that was a pretty good example. A lot of the comments are written in Tagalog, but if you have a base understanding of even basic Tagalog, you can see a lot of the words that are being used there are expressing their derision of the video. Guns are in video games, so kids next generation love them too. Yeah, it's a hot problem. Timothy White says, hot panda salt, hot brewed coffee with strawberry jam. That's breakfast, baby. Joe Brennan says that Vice video link was great last week. By the way, thank you. Yeah, it was really good. I mean, Vice is amazing, and a lot of their programming is available for free on YouTube, and they do incredible work. I think they're sponsored by HBO, and I think actually Bill Maher from Real Time with Bill Maher produces it or something. I'm not sure. But they do a great job. Scott Parnell, aloha from the Big Island. Oh, man, I love the Big Island. Mike Y says, awesome sunset pics. Okay, now, I want you guys to realize the sacrifice I make for you. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I get up every morning at 4:15 a.m. I load up my Mavic, I load up my DSLR, and I go down to the Dumaguete waterfront. Because when the conditions are just right, you can get some amazing sunrise photos here. Sunset photos are on the opposite side of the island. They're a little more difficult to get. But unfortunately, we've had a bunch of low pressure areas that are basically stalled out, in the Philippines right now. So it's been basically cloudy every day. It's been raining every day. It's good because the temperature's been down. I haven't had to turn on fans for a while. Still use the air conditioning at night. So I haven't been able to get that great footage, but I still wake up 4:15 Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, get my butt down to the, and I've actually become buddies with a bunch of people down on the waterfront, and they bring me out coffees and stuff. The Sorry Sorry stores are just opening up, so I'm still fighting to get that, to get those shots, to get that footage. Because again, I talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of the Philippines. The Philippines is freaking beautiful. It's a gorgeous place. It's not so gorgeous when the sun is blazing down at noontime and you're in the middle of a congested city, but when you're outside of it and it's, you know, the magic hour, early morning, late afternoon, it's gorgeous. I love it. Anthony B says Mavic video is great. Yeah, I love my little Mavic. I just printed up the operator's manual. I finally got that printed up so I can figure out how to do more things with it. Heino Ratugan says, last video for bring a drone to PH, need a paper from the CAAP. Yeah, you know, I guess there's rules and regulations on things. I'll look into that. When is the Panglao Walter Brown asks, when is the Panglao Airport opening? I will be going to Bohol next year. I have no idea when that's opening, but it's pretty big. It's moving along pretty well. Yeah, Bohol's cool. Definitely do the zip line. Do the zip line on Bohol. It's freaking awesome, man. If there's one thing you do on Bohol. Chocolate Hills, hills, and they were actually green, so it was like the lime hills when I was there. They weren't really chocolate. VLS says, I think Panglao Airport is set to open in 2018. Roger Jr. says, how about the DJI Spark? Did you look into it? Yeah, I did. I like the longer battery life on the Mavic, and there was a couple other considerations that made me go with the Mavic over the Spark. I mean, the Mavic is really amazing. The quality, and I know I've said it 1,000 times in the video that I did on it, but it's just amazing. The build quality, everything. And it flies itself. If you've never flown a drone before, this thing is just, it's so intuitive, it's so stabilized, it's amazing. So that's pretty much it. Updates on the Balik Bayon box. Everybody knows or should know by now that you can send yourself Balik Bayon boxes up until March 2018 without worrying about any of those crazy excise tax. DRB 166, it's the gang culture responsible for 96.7% of Chicago's killings. Mostly gang-on-gang crime, but it's mostly safe downtown. Yeah, I mean, you got a lot of drugs, you got a lot of gangs. And Chicago's got one of the toughest gun laws in the United States. So you also get a lot of gun transactions going down. And a lot of the surrounding states around Illinois, a lot of those surrounding states have very loose gun laws, like they can do gun shows and they got straw dealers and all that. So a lot of people go outside of Illinois, buy the guns, bring them back. So there's a lot of transaction going on there. And there's also a lot of drugs. There's a lot of drugs in the big cities. There's a lot of drugs in the suburbs. There's a lot of drugs in rural areas now in the United States. Opioid epidemic, meth, all that crap. Get high on life, man. They should give them all DSLRs and get them into photography. Butterflies and stuff. Gerald Dedden noted that he didn't have any problems with his boxes. Also thanks to Sir Martin for that awesome hangover yesterday morning. Really appreciate that. I'll probably see you guys tonight. I'll probably be there. All right, so that's basically it. Thank you everybody for keeping it civil. Somebody needs to tell Dave over at Quantong that he needs to apologize to Peavy. Peavy is very upset about the floppy fish comments. It's fake. How dare you, sir? Oh, check it out. Wayne Richards. Wayne Richards says, hi, Ned. First time here on your live cast. I'm loving your content. Glad to see you had fun with the training drone I gave to Bud. Well, thank you. I got regifted a gift that you gave to Bud. That's cool. The only problem with that thing, and it's fun and everything, but the battery literally only lasts about 4 minutes. So you got to charge it up, then you get about 4 minutes of crashing around the yard. So thanks, Wayne. I appreciate that. I'm probably going to re-gift it, maybe to the neighborhood kids or something. I got to talk to Bud first to get permission to do that because he might want to give it to somebody else. But yeah, definitely thank you for that. Yeah, I was a little concerned actually after I got that thing and I'm crashing all over the place. And if I'm like, if I buy a $1,300 drone and I'm crashing it into walls all the time, I'm gonna lose $1,300 real quick. Less than 10A done already. Yeah, man, we've been going for 40 minutes, and I don't want to make these things too long. Joe Brennan says, enjoy your siesta today. Yeah, that's one thing I do on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, because I'm getting up at 4:15. I always try to get in a nap around 12 o'clock for like an hour or so to recharge the batteries. Sorry we're late. Roger Jr. says, sorry we're late. My girlfriend kept asking me. Asking you what? Oh. Anthony B says, what camera did you use in the Mavic video? That's the camera that's on the Mavic. It's got a really good camera. It's pretty amazing. And Scott Parnell also says, get some ND filters for your Mavic. I don't think I'm going to get filters for the Mavic. I think I'm just going to, just put the footage that I get, throw it into Lightroom. Try not to get so crazy with the saturation and vibrance next time. It got a little bad. Yeah, One Ocean Productions asked, did I miss the Marawi update? Yeah, the president announced that the city of Marawi has been liberated from the ISIS-aligned Maute clan. So basically in the Philippines, you got families, then you got clans, which are a bunch of families all associated with each other. The Maute clan actually, this was a big gamble for them because what's going to happen now is there's going to be all kinds of reprisals against anybody who's affiliated with the clan, and it's going to set off a continuation of reprisal killings back and forth, probably till the end of eternity. All right. Ooh, whoa. What really happens in that? Did he say that? She keeps making up stories. I can't stand it. Yeah, don't worry about it. All right, on behalf of My Philippine Dreams, Vanguard One, Angel, and myself, thank you all for taking part in the live stream. I will see you next time. I got to go bring my Honda Click over to Honda to get it serviced, then I got to go to the gym. Take care, y'all. Be well. Amping, Ingat. Peace.